I want everyone to imagine if E.L. James never existed. I don't mean her 50 Shades of Grey books never existed. I mean, imagine if author Erica Mitchell was a pen name for a series of writers salty about the success of the Twilight books, wrote the 50 Shades books with all the problematic abuse angles, all the plot contrivances, everything on purpose. To prove that you can write a bad book and it'll make money. It's kind of weird, right? You don't have to imagine it because in 1969, that's exactly what happened. Hi, I'm CB Smith, and I'm going to be talking about something that's really out there with Naked Came the Stranger, both the movie and the book that's based on. 2 years ago, I made a video about Valley of the Dolls by Jacqueline Suzanne, a book that is so popular in 1966 that it's still one of the most sold books in publication history, and I got lectured by a sock puppet. It was an eventful year. That book's popularity and another that came out that year, The Adventurers by Harold Robbins, were huge blockbuster titles that just enraged Newsday newspaper columnist Mike McGrady. He and several other members of the Newsday staff sat down and began to come up with an idea to make their own bad book, filled it with lots of sex and violence, and see if it will sell. And sell it did. Nowhere near as much as Susanna Robbins, but under the pen name Penelope Ash, Naked Came the Stranger did become a New York Times bestseller in 1969, selling over 20,000 copies before the group came clean. Then it sold more, about 500,000 copies more. In case you didn't have any other reason to feel bad for not finishing that novel you've been working on for 7 years. The book's story is about Gillian Blake, husband to William Blake. It's that kind of book. William is having an affair with their radio show assistant, Phyllis, so Jilly decides to cheat on Billy with everyone living within their suburban neighborhood of Kings Neck, Long Island, New York. Not to be confused with Kings Point, Long Island, or Great Neck, Long Island, and definitely don't get it confused with Long Island City because it's actually in Queens. I've been dating a girl who lives in New York for 2 years and I'm still confused. How it worked was that each person was given a chapter of the book to work on. They each had a character that Gillian would sleep with. Now, if you're worried this would hurt things like plot and character development, making it seem unfocused and disjointed, don't worry, there isn't any. The story is really that simple, where each chapter is primarily in the point of view of the male character. We're introduced to them, they meet Gillian, they get seduced by her, and they meet an untimely end. Either they die, get divorced, in jail, get hauled away in a straitjacket. Naturally, with something with no plot or character development, and characters literally coming and going, this would have little choice but to be adapted into a porno. And in 1975, that's exactly what happened.
Now listen, this isn't one of your sleazy underground webcam skin flicks, and I don't even know who the heck this anime girl is. No, we're talking about your sophisticated, high-class erotic art films. It was the golden age of porn.
Thank you, Mr. Producer. I had a feeling you were going to chime in. Radley Metzger was part of the French New Wave auteur style of movie making, trying to bring some art into his films. And boobs. He made X-rated adaptations of operas, novels, plays. He's celebrated as an artist and has his work featured in the Lincoln Center and at the Museum of Modern Art. I haven't seen his other works, but if Naked Came the Stranger is any indication of this man's repertoire, I'm good. I don't need to see anything else. The book begins with Gillian already figured out Billy is having an affair. While we have this build-up for the movie, our very first scene is of Gillian waking up and, oh my god, what is that? Is this high yet? In the movie, we follow Billy and Jilly in their daily lives producing for their radio show, where the crew sets up and tears down the equipment twice a day instead of having a permanent studio, making their setup about as bad as mine. And I'm in a closet that has rugs stapled to the wall. The book does have each chapter open with a conversation between Bill and Jill during their radio show. The conversations have something to do with the next chapter, like talking about boxing and Gillian sleeps with a retired prizefighter, or a conversation about religion and Gillian seduces a rabbi. The movie does this too, introducing a porno actress in one scene and a highbrow art film critic, where I feel like the movie is trying to justify itself.
But Harold, if the film was so terrible, then why did you give it such a good review?
Well, actually, I think it was the director. I think he's a great, great director. And I have to admire him for being such a great director. He's a great director.
Or he was just bought by Disney. Eventually, Jillian does get suspicious about Billy and Phyllis. She follows them into the city. After following behind them, she finds out the horrible truth: they're playing hopscotch together. Sure, it begins with hopscotch, but next thing you know, they're gonna be off in a room somewhere playing patty cake.
It can't be! It just can't be!
And in the bedroom, they move on from patty cake to, well, something else. Jillian then comes back to the house thinking about what to do with the situation. That's when the light bulb comes on.
I've got it. You've got it. You'll cheat.
Okay, points go to the movie. That was actually pretty good. Later on, Billy and Jilly go to a neighborhood party. This is where the book begins. Jillian is out looking at all of her potential lovers she'll seduce in the book. And it is an interesting cast for the book. A mob boss, a retired boxer, a World War II veteran. Those are pretty mundane compared to the others in the book. In the movie, we have an accountant, a college professor, I don't know, he has a desk, so it must be something important. Desk salesman? I'm going with desk salesman. At the party, Jilly is asked to be a wingman or woman for her friend getting a little, well, something from the bartender. Jillian tries with the other bartender, but he's just not that into her, and it's awkward and sad.
You already got off once today, didn't you?
Oh, I haven't gotten off in 2 weeks.
This is different from the book, where Jillian is already a master at seducing every man she met in the book. It didn't matter if they were happily married, deeply religious, or even gay. Jillian conquers them all, body and mind. Whereas movie Jillian has to work on her seduction skills, like with Ernie the desk salesman, in the book, Ernie was a World War II veteran that wakes up in the middle of the night having PTSD episodes, but not from the war. No, he liked killing. Book Ernie would have nightmares about a prostitute he met in Hawaii that did something to Ernie involving ice cubes. I am not going to say what it is, but Ernie the desk salesman discovers he's into a little, BDSM.
It's wonderful! This is the best thing that's ever happened to me!
But Ernie also learns what happens when you don't adhere to the safe word.
Wonderful. Would you beat me here? Would you beat me right here? Beat me right here. I got some skin. Look, I got a bruise here. Beat me right here. Give me the mouthpiece. I want the chain. I want this too. Oh, I want this. Oh, ow, ow. Oh, ouch. I love it so much. It's wonderful. Oh, more. Oh, stop it.
Is this hot yet? The book is strictly Jillian and her sexcapades, while in the movie we get a couple more Billy and Phyllis dates. For Jilly, the third time is the charm, with Marvin Goodman, the accountant. Marvin in the book is an accountant whose wife is constantly spending money and seduces him to keep his mind off the bills. Naturally, that means when Jillian comes to see him, she seduces him to give her money. They go for a drive in Marvin's car where some bumper-to-bumper traffic seems to be the perfect time for a little bumper in Marvin's car, if you get my meaning. Sex. They're having sex. I just wanted to get that across. Marvin gets arrested at a toll booth while Jillian snuck out. In the movie, Marvin is shy and timid but wants to meet Jillian someplace private. Of course, that means a double-decker bus. Oh, Marvin isn't on board at first, but he comes around to it. And in the end, he has the confidence to be his true New Yorker self.
How do you do? Go f*** yourself.
Next up is Taylor, the college professor. But in the book, it's Taylor, the advertising executive. In the book, Taylor is fighting with his father-in-law / president of the company about a deodorant ad. Jillian comes in demanding the company stop running ads for a newspaper that wrote a negative review of her radio show. If it sounds like this is some kind of plot detail that was in the background of the book, yeah, no, this is the first time we're hearing about this. Taylor gets fired from his job when his father-in-law comes into his office seeing something else coming on. Sex. They're having sex. Movie Taylor, on the other hand, is really hitting it off with Jillian. She seems to be enjoying herself.
When I'm with you, I feel like something out of a silent movie.
What?
Hello? You may cancel the brandy.
Is this hot yet?
One of the last chapters of the book is Willoughby Martin, and his whole character is that he's gay, like super gay. Like in the book, he expresses how he can't even imagine why anyone would want to have sex with a woman gay.
There's not a lot to his character, is what I'm saying.
In the book, Gillian meets Willow at a party where they drink some sex on the beach, and then they have a little sex on the beach, if you know what I...
Sex. They're having sex on the beach.
Immediately afterwards, he wipes the makeup he had on his face, drops his pants, and urinates into the ocean. Now when he talks, his voice is deeper. By God, he was a man.
As a straight, I can assure you that we pee in the ocean all the time. In fact, if you live in a landlocked state and you haven't peed in the ocean, guess what? You're gay. I'm sorry, I don't make the rules.
The movie decided to do a little switcheroo where Gillian finds Phyllis alone and turns her gay, or at least bisexual. This actually causes Phyllis to break it up with Billy. The movie ends with Billy and Jilly making up and effectively saving their marriage through the power of infidelity.
Thoughts?
It's odd that the porno adaptation of a book actually has less sex scenes but more character development than the original novel. Naked Came the Stranger, the book, was just one random chapter after another trying to top each other. Every encounter with Gillian never ended well. Ernie the desk salesman had a sexual awakening, while war veteran Ernie passed out drunk and died in a swimming pool. Movie Marvin gains some confidence, while book Marvin gets divorced, tries to date Gillian, only for her to reject him after he gets a new apartment. Book Taylor loses his job and probably his marriage, while movie Taylor had a nice but oddly silent date with Gillian. Phyllis, like everyone else, grew from this experience, while book Phyllis is never heard from after the first chapter. But the last we hear of Willoughby is he beat up his boyfriend and left. Because I guess he's straight now, and that's what straight people do. This doesn't mean that the movie doesn't have its issues. In the book, Gillian doesn't outright say why she's ruining all these marriages, but it's clear it's revenge. Gillian's motivation for the movie, on the other hand.
If I can find a few acquaintances and appeal to the inner man in each of them, well, then perhaps I can find the inner man in my own husband.
Stems from wanting to better other men's lives so she can figure out how to keep her husband. At least the revenge angle in the book makes sense, while this bettering other men angle just doesn't. This movie was made during the height in second wave feminism and sexual liberation, where a wife can say she wants to be satisfied, but this movie somehow doubles down on the always appeasing wife angle.
I don't recommend trying to find this movie. It was hard to find. I had to order it from Germany, and then I had to pick it up from the post office because it was some kind of high security item. I had to explain to the postman about it. It was all awkward.
This movie doesn't really work either as a movie, since it stops for these long-winded sex scenes, or as porn for having too little of those long-winded sex scenes. I don't really recommend the book either, though it's much easier to obtain. After the first couple chapters, it becomes a slog to go through because every outcome is nearly the same. The story behind the book is more entertaining than the book itself. And truth be told, after Anne Rice's East to Eden and Sleeping Beauty series, and of course 50 Shades, most of this book that was written with the sole purpose to be scandalous and shocking are just kinda tame.
To the point that the most shocking thing about this book from 1969 is people talk about how expensive their houses are at $30,000.
Given the choice between the two, I would say the book simply because it knows what it is and doesn't strive to be anything more. For the movie though, in trying to make something out of this, all I can say is,
I personally appreciate an attempt at telling a story. When I care more about the characters, I care more about the f***ing.
One more thing I'd like to add. One of the best things about this book and the movie are the special features in it.
Mike McGrady wrote an introduction talking about the process that went through writing this book. There were a lot of snobbish rhetoric about how this book was meant for the reader who has put away comic books but isn't yet ready for editorials in the daily news. Getting past that though, there is some interesting bits about what type of style to emulate, what type of pronouns and metaphors in the writing of scenes and actions, more emphasis on the build-up to a sex scene versus an actual sex scene. For something that was supposed to be an easy joke, the writers actually put hard work into what they made, and there's even some writing lessons to be had in reading this intro. Now, the movie has special features all over this DVD, director commentary, a then and now of the locations they filmed, a booklet on the making of the movie, and even a step-by-step process on the remastering of the movie. That was the most surprising, since movies will come out advertising how the picture and sound are remastered, but this is the first and only one I know that takes you through the whole process, even naming what equipment they used. The company publishing this DVD really went all in on this. That at least deserves a shout out. This is CB Smith, and thanks for taking a page. Hey everyone, you know what I'm about to say at this point. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you want to see more videos about books and their adaptations. I mentioned my Valley of the Dolls video here, so I'm going to put that in the description below, and my Roger Rabbit video since I showed the clip there. Next video, I'm actually going to talk about Dune and, of all things, the music that the book series has inspired over the years. And hope you'll stop by and check it out when it's published.